Tonight, a Broken Hill man allegedly caught driving while suspended until 2037. And rate relief on its way for Wyler businesses impacted by coronavirus.
From our 7 Spencer Golf Studios, your nightly news with John Hunt begins now.
Good evening, everyone. Broken Hill police have arrested a disqualified driver who is not supposed to be on the road for another 17 years. Officers saying the serial offender was also in possession of a prohibited weapon. Patrick Ranke has the details.
In the early hours of Friday afternoon, police stopped the 39-year-old man on Chapel Lane, officers recognising him as being a disqualified driver.
He was pulled over, he was breath tested with a negative result.
Police also found a laser pointer in the man's car, a prohibited weapon unless the owner has a permit. Further checks on the man revealed he'd been declared a habitual traffic offender by the courts in 2016. The driver was refused bail and will reappear in court facing a raft of charges. Sergeant Schaefer saying he is not allowed to drive until the year 2037.
When a person has come before the court several times for driving whilst disqualified, when the court identifies a pattern of offending, they declare them to be habitual and it leads to increased penalties.
Meanwhile, another man will face court at a later date, charged with assaulting police in an unrelated incident.
Claimed to be in some sort of medical distress, so police waited with him while an ambulance was called. During the wait, the man became agitated.
It's alleged the man punched one of the officers in the head when he was told he would be taken to the local station. The man was charged with assaulting and threatening police as well as resisting arrest. He was refused bail.
Wyler Council has announced a rate relief package for local businesses and organisations. Council says it's committed to helping soften the blow of an economic downturn caused by the coronavirus pandemic.
This usually packed out gym now completely empty. The Wyler Rec Centre, along with many other organisations, forced to close during the pandemic due to the federal government's mandatory restrictions.
That has seen a lot of our casual staff be stood down. We're basically just working behind the scenes, keeping the cogs turning.
Wyler Council is now offering local businesses and community groups the opportunity to defer rate payments until the end of August.
Any sort of relief that is going to help the community is a good thing, obviously, given the unforeseen circumstances that we're all going through at the moment. It's unprecedented, so any support that the council's able to give the community is obviously a good thing.
Council is also in the process of finalising a more comprehensive relief package. Among the options being considered is a lower rate increase for next year, along with future waiving of business rates for those impacted. An extension of waiving of commercial lease and licences held with Council is also on the table.
It's to help support our community by assisting government initiatives to drive the economy, secure jobs and support industries.
Impacted ratepayers can contact Council or visit their website. Sophia Contagonis, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Regional travel across South Australia is set to be one of the first restrictions lifted as the state goes nearly 2 weeks without any new coronavirus cases. The state government announcing allowing country road trips will be one of the first areas they'll look at easing restrictions. Wyler's tourism sector says it's exciting news for regional businesses.
We are seeing, that downturn has certainly affected lots of businesses in Wyler. So our accommodation houses, our restaurants, our sort of dining entities, but also our fuel and, the coffee shop down the road.
The move is set to rejuvenate regional communities hit hardest by the pandemic. South Australian playgrounds and skate parks will reopen as the state begins easing coronavirus restrictions. South Australia's Chief Medical Officer giving the all-clear to reopen sometime this week after the closure began over a month ago. Local councils are waiting to hear the official reopening date. Social distancing and strict hygiene measures will still be in place for those using the facilities. A 43-year-old Adelaide Hills man will face court after drugs were allegedly found in his car at Red Hill Thursday afternoon. Patrol stopped a vehicle just before 5 on the Augusta Highway, where they allege he tested positive to cannabis and methamphetamine. Police also found small amounts of cannabis, methamphetamine and drug paraphernalia. The suspect was bailed to appear in court in September. A Broken Hill councillor has called for unity from her colleagues, saying it's not the time to be criticising council's decisions. However, another councillor says he's entitled to his opinion and that he won't bite his tongue.
The coronavirus pandemic has hit City Council hard. Councillor Christine Adams says now's the time to come together, not fall apart.
We should be actually supporting our council and not criticising decisions made. If a councillor does have a problem or a question, let them approach the relevant council staff before putting it out to the general public.
At last week's monthly meeting, Councillor Adams threw her support behind the town's local government and how they're handling the current situation. Her motion called for unity, welcomed by the Mayor.
I know the hours that the General Manager and the senior staff are working on. Our finance team are looking at our budget that goes well beyond what's happening this month. It's actually planning in post-COVID, what will this look like?
However, it wasn't unanimous, Councillors Tom Kennedy and Bob Allgate voting against. Councillor Kennedy saying he has the right to disagree with decisions if he feels it's not in the community's best interest.
I support the Mayor, the other councillors, the workforce, the General Manager, senior management and everyone else involved in council. It's a hard time. Everyone's doing the best they can. I do not agree with some of the decisions that are being made by council during this time.
It was something that I believe firmly that I had to do, and I did it, and I was supported by the majority of the councillors.
Patrick Reinke, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Still to come tonight, Clare Valley wine producers fighting back against label fraud. And it's back to the future for the Whyalla port as the shipping industry returns. Welcome back. 150 vineyard blocks in the Clare Valley have participated in the world's largest blockchain trial. They've created a Vino Trust designed to stop their brands being ripped off on the global market.
A step forward for wine integrity, Clare Valley grape growers will soon be reaping the benefits.
We believe that we've just completed the world's largest ever wine provenance blockchain trial here in the Clare Valley with 15 local producers.
It comes as counterfeit items continue to hurt Australia's wine industry, costing local producers millions of dollars in revenue.
There are people who are changing labels, they're refilling bottles, and in some cases they're actually misrepresenting the region and the variety of the wine.
Vino Trust has been created for wineries to manage data and comply with Australia's label integrity program.
All by tracking from when the fruit was picked right through to the making, and we'll later this year track it right through to where it's put into bottle.
The cause receiving support from the Premier, along with $50,000.
Instrumental in giving reassurance to consumers that they're getting a quality product, but particularly from South Australia.
As many people as possible, a bit like the COVID story, the more people who give information to this, the more successful it will be and the better for Australia's reputation as an outstanding wine producer.
Shari Hams, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
A Bachelor of Business is high on the list for those enrolling in mid-year study at UniHub. The degree offered by Flinders Uni will see students learn a broad range of subjects, from economics to marketing.
Business seems to be a hot topic here at the UniHub Spencer Gulf campus. New figures show a rise in interest in the Flinders University courses as demand increases for qualified professionals.
We know that through the industry survey work and our discussion with employers right across the region, that business-related skills are in short supply, and that's not going to change into the future.
Experts say job prospects from the degree are almost endless.
Can be everything from the corporate sector and private enterprise, small business, right through to government, all levels of government and the not-for-profit sector. So right across the business-related skills.
Drew Kirchner is in his first semester of his Bachelor of Business. He says the course has been a great learning experience.
Really enjoying the fact that I get to look at things, I guess, a little bit differently. It's opened up my mind to being able to see things from a whole new perspective, even though I've only just started. It has made impacts on the way that I see things.
He says he was on the fence about studying for some time.
I tossed it up for a long time, and then finally I probably forced myself a little bit to do it. But I'm really glad that I did, and I don't have any regrets. I think you'll regret it more if you don't do it.
To upskill or even to change their career path. So the Bachelor of Business is a really good option for people to jump into university study.
Laura Milovanovic, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Police have seized up to 6 kilograms of dried cannabis following a drug raid in Munter Bay Saturday morning. Just after 11, patrols searched a home where they allegedly found vacuum-sealed bags filled with cannabis, along with other drug paraphernalia. A 54-year-old man was charged with processing a commercial quantity of cannabis. He'll appear in Kadeena's Magistrates Court at the end of September. HMAS Success has made its way into Whyalla as the owners of the local port go back to the future. It's the first Navy vessel to be scrapped here since 1978. Sophia Contagonis has the story.
Towed all the way from Port Pirie, this large old naval vessel is now docked in the Whyalla port, where it will be deconstructed in order to reuse the parts for recyclable material. It's the first vessel to be scrapped here since the closure of the shipyards more than 40 years ago. GFG says it marks the resurrection of a historically important industry.
It's part of our commercialisation of the Whyalla port. In other words, moving it from a private port to an open port.
GFG has begun opening the Whyalla port to other users in a bid to attract new revenue to the business.
I think the Whyalla port is a strategic asset, not just for GFG Australia, but also for the state of South Australia.
Completing stage 1 in Port Pirie, the HMAS Success was cut down to the deck. It was then towed to Whyalla and pulled onto the slipway with a series of chain winches.
Of course, in terms of cutting up the hull now, there'll be about 2 to 3 months' work there. So it's definitely a job creator.
The company have undergone extensive development applications to ensure the operations of the new slipway, one of the largest in Australia, adhere to environmental regulations.
Stay with us. Port Augusta businesses urged to take part in a coronavirus survey. And local pomegranate producers reap the benefits of this year's season. Business Port Augusta wants to hear from their members on how they're coping during COVID-19. They've launched a new survey, with the information helping the Chamber understand what support is needed in the community.
Many businesses around the region are doing it tough during the current crisis. Business Port Augusta is now asking local businesses through a survey on how they're coping.
It's good for people to realise that they're not the only ones hurting too. Business owners seem to live in their own little world at times and feel like they're all alone.
Just under half of its members have filled out the survey, with early figures suggesting many have still been able to trade.
There's been 95% of businesses still open for business in one way, shape or form.
Although many have had to make significant changes, Business Port Augusta are hopeful many are getting the help they're entitled to.
There's a fair bit of stimulus out there at the moment, and I think businesses need to take advantage of getting that so that they can pull through the crisis.
The Chamber set to take the figures to local council in a bid to gain some extra economic support.
We're also going to take this information to council and see if there's any way that we can get some relief for businesses through Port Augusta.
Laura Milovanovic, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Port Augusta police have reported a 26-year-old man for refusing to submit to a drug test last Friday night. He was pulled over by police on Phillip Street, initially returning a positive drug screening test before refusing an oral fluid analysis. The man was issued with a 6-month loss of licence and his car impounded for 28 days. Police searched the vehicle, allegedly finding a bag with a substance believed to be methamphetamine and drug paraphernalia. He was issued with a drug diversion notice and will appear in court at a later date. Residents of Port Augusta are invited to complete a 5-minute survey regarding local events. The council looking for community input to assist with planning for the future. residents can have their say on what they'd like to see return and which ones are no longer relevant. They're also asking for ideas on new events. The online survey closes on June 12th. Well known for their famous grapes, Clare Valley growers are also wrapping up a harvest of a different kind, pomegranates. They say it's been a tough season for this resistant superfruit.
Tiny seeds bursting with flavour. Described as an emerging fruit, Wakefield Valley producers are exporting from Auburn to the nation.
Don't attract the birds and they're very hardy. They're really quite drought resistant because they're a sort of a desert fruit.
Numbers were slightly down this year, with growers now focused on next season.
If they fruit too heavily, you tend to get a lot of damaged fruit, so we try and get a premium fruit by pruning to a certain level of production.
We have the grapes, then we have the pomegranates, then we have the walnuts. Our manager, Malcolm Parish, is not given a moment's rest.
Pomegranates are gaining popularity, with lots of locals taking a bite.
We sell through a number of local outlets, both in Auburn here and also in Clare, and there's been a lot of interest in something local produce, frankly.
Through their own research, they've proved this fruit can be affected by fungal diseases.
Utipa actually reinfected plants, and so frankly this is the first described, certainly in Australia, probably in the world, of actually Utipa infecting pomegranates.
Buyers are being urged to freeze these gems to keep for all seasons round.
And they're great in yoghurt, they're great on your muesli, lamb, salads. They really are and they're so pretty.
Shari Hams, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Stay with us after the break. We wrap up the day in finance and we'll have the weather details with Britt. Hello again. Time for a quick check of the markets and local shares. It was a day of mostly green across the board. Cube Holdings surged up by 13%, with Elders and Clean Seas also having a good day. Santos was marginally higher, as was BHP, while Carrapateena owner Oz Minerals was slightly down. And the All Ords and the ASX 200 were both up by over 1%. To the weather now, and after a cold and wet period last week, the sun is shining once again. Here's Brent with the details.
Thanks, John, and good evening. Mostly sunny conditions saw maximum temperatures in the mid to late teens today. Whyalla reaching a top of 17 degrees, 18 the top at Port Pirie, 15 at Broken Hill. 20 was the region's top recorded at Port Augusta, Woodner 19 today, Port Lincoln 17, Kadina 16. Here's a look at those clear skies with a bit of scattered cloud about the coast, a ridge of high pressure keeping skies cloud-free elsewhere. Moving along to tomorrow now on the Gulf waters. Variable winds with around 10 knots, seas below 1 metre. Looking bright and sunny across the region tomorrow with maximum temperatures above average. Port Lincoln looking at a top of 22 degrees, Cleve 21, Woodner 23. Whyalla a top of 21 tomorrow, 22 at Port Augusta, Kadina 20. 21 the top at Port Pirie, Clare 18 and Broken Hill a top of 19 degrees. Taking a quick look further through the week now, strong winds about on Wednesday, otherwise partly cloudy with maximums in the early to mid-20s. Thursday, similar temperatures with showers expected about the York and Lower Eyre Peninsulas, mostly fine elsewhere. Sunny at Broken Hill on Friday, partly cloudy about most other centres with possible rainfall at Woodner, Port Lincoln and Kadina. And John, that's today's weather report. I'm looking forward to getting some washing dried in tomorrow's sunshine.
Thanks, Britt. And that's the local news this Monday evening. Thanks for joining us. I'll have updates later and we'll be back tomorrow at 7 p.m. Have a great evening. Good night.